Project Hail Mary is what happens when the filmmakers of a given movie are a perfect match for the material that they wish to adapt. As a hit science fiction novel of the same name, written by Andy Weir, who also wrote The Martian, Project Hail Mary embodied two truths. On one side, the book is an intelligently written slice of speculative science fiction with hard scientific theories and facts that are well explained, like, for example, Einstein's theory of relativity when applied to light speed time dilation, because Star Wars fucking lied to us, all while interjecting some well-argued fictional scientific details in a way that meshes well with real science. And on the other side of things, Project Hail Mary is easy to read and to emotionally invest in, most because of how its lead character, Dr. Ryland Grace, while very smart, is an amusing goofus who, once the story begins to really develop his character, eventually reveals a resonant beating heart behind the character and the story as a whole, meaning that Project Hail Mary is impeccably well crafted due to how the book was structured to be equal parts complex and approachable, to be deep yet also heartfelt. And that complex yet approachable, deep yet heartfelt descriptor applies to movies directed by or involving Phil Lord and Chris Miller as well. In fact, the directing duo behind hits like the Lego Movie and the Jump Street films, as well as heavily influencing other projects that they produced or wrote like the acclaimed Spider-Verse movies, have a long track record of creating or helping to create films that are simultaneously accessible, all while also featuring layers upon layers of depth, kind of doing so in a way that resembles cinematic lasagna. Like in the Lego Movie, for example, the film can contain some stupid yet really humorous bullshit like this, but then eventually tug at the heartstrings when the Lego Movie ultimately reveals itself to be about a father's fraught relationship with his son, which gives the movie, as silly as it is, some narrative and thematic weight. As I said, delicious cinematic lasagna. And the duo struck gold yet again with Project Hail Mary, a great and entertaining movie that reflects well upon both Andy Weir's source material and Phil Lord's and Chris Miller's artistic sensibilities, given its irreverent humor, impressive narrative and thematic construction, audience-friendly approachability, and strong emotional core. Akin to the novel, the movie was simultaneously deftly created with both thought and the capacity to entertain, because, to paraphrase what I said earlier, Phil Lord and Chris Miller fitted Andy Weir's source material like a glove, or an impressively accurately sized condom, meaning that a Lord and Miller directed Project Hail Mary made a lot of sense. And we can see this from the story alone. The plot follows Ryan Gosling's Ryland Grace, who wakes up from a coma inside a spaceship hurtling through, well, space. And upon waking up from that said coma, Grace realizes that two other people were supposed to awake from comas as well, but had died during the trip, meaning that in this spacecraft, he is all alone. Hard to relate. And to make matters worse, Grace has no memory of who he is or why he was sent into space. But as the movie progresses, he slowly but surely recalls past events through flashback sequences, starting with Grace remembering his name, that he has a doctorate but had previously taught science at a junior high, tough gig, and that the sun is being destroyed by an alien microorganism named astrophage, which to the naked eye looks like a collection of black alien goo. Hopefully they tested to make sure it wasn't a symbiote. And from there, Dr. Ryland Grace must piece together the events that led to him being on board this space shuttle and how to ultimately save Earth from the astrophage. Project Hail Mary's story works because Ryan Gosling is a great Ryland Grace. Akin to how the source material befitted Lord and Miller's stylistic tendencies, Gosling was a perfect match for this character. Hell, the book itself reads like a first-person perspective of an alternate dimension Ryan Gosling who became a master of science rather than master of actor. Like in both the movie and book, Grace is an amusing goof whose comedic wit and antics captures the maximum levels of mirth that a human being can withstand without their head exploding like in that Cronenberg movie. And Gosling captures the essence of this character because Ryland Grace kinda reflects the personified manic energy that is Ryan Gosling, a man who, at this stage of his career, really enjoys playing fun and lovable goofuses, even once you kinda become antagonists.
You guys are clearly not doing patriarchy very well.
Admittedly, it also helps in the flashback sequences that Gosling's comedic antics play off the comparatively more emotionally reserved characters incredibly well, most notably in Sandra Huller's Eva Strat, the no-nonsense woman installed by all the governments of the world to spearhead the effort to save the human race. A woman with no time to brook any bullshit, which is why it's funny when Grace brooks her with some bullshit. It's just a really fun character dynamic. Of course, Grace isn't a perfect person. In fact, he isolates himself in work and avoids confrontation whenever possible, which creates room for personal growth and for him to undergo a strong character arc. And adjacent to this, Project Hail Mary features some serious dramatic tension as well, even amidst the movie's more comedic aspects. After all, the film's main plot revolves around how the human race is doomed if Doofus McGoofus fails his mission. In fact, throughout the movie, there are some great science fiction action set pieces, impressive visual effects, a score that has emotional highs and subtle lows, an incredible sense of tension whenever the fate of the mission dangles by the tiniest of threads, and the film regularly features hefty thrusts of narrative momentum that help pace the movie to where the viewer always remains committed to the events on screen. In other words, we just take the movie as a whole with sincerity. And that's kind of new territory for Lord and Miller directed fare, especially in live action. While yes, their past movies feature great character development, a lot of those same past movies don't feature as high of stakes compared to what is present in Project Hail Mary, given how those movies are either light animated fare or comedies where Ice Cube loses his shit upon discovering that Jonah Hill is banging his daughter.
Give me the goddamn string beans.
Hell, the closest that the directing duo approached dramatic material before Project Hail Mary was with the Spider-Verse movies, and Lord and Miller, despite heavily influencing those films creatively via writing the script and being producers, did not direct those films. So yeah, Project Hail Mary featured some new elements that these two have now added to their skill set. All elements that work well in Project Hail Mary. Because while the movie contains the sense of humor and heart present in other Lord and Miller projects, that said sense of humor and heart works in tandem with this narrative's high Ryan Gosling's gotta save the world stakes, because we overall care about Ryland Grace, the fate of the Earth, and the fates of many of the other characters. If anything, the movie's accessible human attributes allow us to empathize and be interested in the film's hard science fiction narrative, which overall befits Andy Weir's source material, meaning that Lord and Miller directing Project Hail Mary is a creative match made in heaven.